On today's episode of Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast, we're going to be talking about how to love your morning with Jennifer Dukes-Lee.
Hi, I'm Karen Cooper, a wife, mom of three, real estate broker, team owner, and founder of Empowering Women in Real Estate. As a realtor, I've personally helped well over 700 families in my career, and now I help thousands of women from all across the country balance real life and real estate through daily inspiration, motivation, and actionable plans to increase their success. Listen in as I share stories and tips from my life and business and interview some of my favorite people.
Hi there. I'm so glad you're here for today's episode. I'm so excited about this conversation. We talk about mornings a lot. I share my morning routine. You see me share my photo every morning on Instagram. If we're not connected there, I'm already, by the way, I'm at karen.w.cooper. I always share a picture with my morning cup of coffee. Our morning routines, or as you're going to hear from today's guest, our morning ritual is so important. It sets the tone for your entire day, and it is often the only time we have for ourselves. And so I was so excited when I saw that Jennifer Dukes-Lee has written a book called How to Love Your Morning. It is coming out next week. You can actually pre-order. All the details are in this episode. And as soon as I saw the information about this book, I knew that we needed to have a conversation that we could share on today's episode. And so I am thrilled. She touches on so many details, so many things, including the fact that we are all morning people, and you're going to hear more about that. Even those of you who think that you are not a morning person, you are actually a morning person in progress. So you're going to hear about that in the episode. So take a listen. I would love to hear what you think. Come over to our Empowering Women in Real Estate community on Facebook, comment on today's post, and until next time, stay well. Jennifer, I am so happy to have you on the podcast today. Will you introduce yourself and tell all the listeners about you?
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to be here. First of all, you're doing such great work out in the world, and it's great to get to bless your listeners today. So, my name is Jennifer, and I live on a farm, actually, in Northwest Iowa. My husband is a fifth generation family farmer, and I am a writer and a speaker, a book author. And I'm a mom, and our kids are grown up and out of the house. We've got one in Indonesia and the
Wow.
other in Connecticut. So
You're in that stage of life, right? I think we hit that midlife stage and the kids start growing up and doing their things and things change. I'm so delighted to talk to you today. When I heard about your book that is coming out on April 7th on how to love your morning, and our listeners, our community with Empowering Women in Real Estate, we are all, busy women, busy moms, juggling real life. You and I were having to pause our recording because my dogs are barking, right? Real life and their businesses, specifically their real estate businesses. And our mornings are so precious and our mornings are so important. Tell us about the book and how this came about and what really prompted you to do this work.
Yeah, so this book is really designed to help women wake up with hope, with joy, even amidst the chaos. The book is very practical in that I give people a lot of habits and practices that can kind of help them start their day with intention, which I assume in your business that's really important. I mean, you
Very
got
important.
some of y'all have kids. There's, you certainly have clients and showings and texts coming in right away and contracts and all this. And when I think about the work of a real estate agent, which I am not, I think about how probably the first few minutes of the day are maybe the only time that hasn't been claimed by somebody. And, for me, I've learned that the most successful people and really the happiest people I know don't wait until the chaos of the day begins to decide, you know what, this is who I want to be today. And we decide that in the morning. That's something that I've actually done fairly well, is start out my morning well. I mean, most of my books, quite honestly, Karen, are written out of a place of some flaw that God had to sort of work on me
Oh,
over years. But this book came about because I haven't done mornings perfectly, but I've done them pretty well for most of my life. And the book was how the book about, to answer your question, wasn't my idea. It was my daughter's idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were on vacation, and it was my husband and I and our two adult daughters, college age. And that morning, just as the sun was rising, we were already like planning out our morning, like espresso, a walk on the beach, watch the sunrise, Bible time. Like we had all these things. And I said to the girls, I wish I could make time stand still in the morning. I love the mornings. And
Mhm.
Lydia, our oldest daughter, slammed her hands on the table and she said, Mom, you need to write a book about mornings. And I didn't even know what that would mean. Like, what does it mean to write a book about mornings? Well, I began to study the good practices of mornings. I began to research as a Christian. I began to look at what the Bible had to say about mornings. It turns out there's more than 200
Wow.
mornings mentioned in the Bible, and I studied all of them as a kind of a foundational way to build what a healthy morning routine can look like. And what I came up with was something really fun. I hope hopefully engaging. Early reviews are indicating that it's been super helpful too. So
Oh,
yeah,
super.
I'm excited to see where this goes.
I love that. And what you say is so spot on. Like that little bit of time that we have in the morning is often all we get. And something that you talk about, it's not necessarily a morning routine because morning routine can sound kind of rigid, right? And it
Yep.
can, and especially for those of us, with kids and in real estate, no 2 days are the same. And you talk a lot about rituals, right? Morning
Mhm.
rituals. Can you talk about the difference and why that distinction is important?
I think we're used to hearing about morning routines. We see them on TikTok, we see them on Instagram, and it's like these step-by-step things that you do to create a healthy morning. But for me, even just the word routine sounds like something we have to do, whereas a ritual is this thing that feels meaningful, like even sacred. I am not really all that motivated by things that feel routine or performative, like just check the box and move on. But I am really motivated to wake up to a sacred ritual that draws me into hope and joy and something larger than myself. In my case, the love of Jesus. So that's what I wanted to do. And how we name things is so important.
Yeah.
When I get up, I know somebody's going to think that I'm completely bonkers, but when I get up, I am already thinking of my first cup of coffee. Yes, I'm
Same,
thinking of,
same. Yes, yes,
I am
same.
like, I love that first cup. I mean, sometimes the night before, I'm already
The night
thinking,
before. I
yes.
literally said that to my husband earlier this week. Yes.
So when I go to the coffee machine, which is usually one of the first things I do in the morning, I have an espresso machine. I push the buttons and I get all the beans ready and everything, and I say out loud, "This is my coffee ritual." And
Oh,
it just creates this sense of sacredness and meaningfulness. Like, this is how I'm starting my day. I'm starting my day with something warm. It's announcing to myself and to God that, like, this is, we're in this together. It's a posture of thankfulness and intentionality. It's
mhm.
also the time when I pray for people in my church. I go to a little country church, Karen, like with the little steeple, cemetery
Oh,
across the street. And we have what are called bulletins, which are like,
yes.
and then on the back of the bulletins are the people at church that we're
Prayer
praying
list.
for.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so I have that prayer list right by my coffee maker. So a part of my coffee ritual is to pray for these wonderful folks every single day.
Oh,
And then I move on to the other pieces of my
I
morning. Well,
I love that. That's so like I love the intentionality of that. I love that you say that you call it like this is my coffee ritual. Like imagine, I'm thinking about as I'm going throughout my day, right? All of the different things that we do. Imagine if we can kind of apply that same sort of thing. Obviously we're talking about mornings today, but as I'm thinking about our listeners and you sit down at your desk to serve your clients and whether it's you're doing your prospecting or whatever it is and I can imagine sitting down and saying, this is my client service ritual, right? This is my prospecting ritual. Like it
yeah.
just brings a completely different energy. Did you find that? So it's fascinating to me that there were over 200 mornings in the Bible that you researched as part of this. Is that kind of where that sort of ritual kind of language and things came from, or what did you learn from that?
Yeah, Karen, I think that's exactly it. I don't think I ever used the word morning ritual until I started to see how sacred mornings are in the Bible.
Mhm.
Mornings in the Bible are not just a time stamp, like, okay, it's the next morning, but they were times often when God would have, whether it was Moses or David or Joshua, I mean, time after time, he would say, I got something for you to do today.
Mhm.
And, walk in this, be obedient in this. And they wouldn't put it off until noon. They wouldn't hit the snooze button 3 times. They got up to do the thing that God had called them to do. And
Yeah.
even in their work, then, the work that God had called them to do, it felt sacred because God was walking them in it. And He was, in fact, leading the way. I think it's so cool. This was the first morning that I discovered. I think it's so cool in Genesis, the very beginning of the Bible. The first thing that God created was a morning when He said, "Let there be
Light.
light."
Hmm.
And over again are all these mornings. I'm sure that many of your listeners have heard a very famous Bible verse from Lamentations that talks about His mercies being new
Yes.
every morning. And
Yes.
maybe you've heard the one from Psalm 30 that says, Weeping may last for the night, but joy comes
Will come in
in
the
the morning.
morning. Yes. Yes.
These are like, there's so much promise and hopefulness built into morning. And, it doesn't say anything about you need to get up at 4:30 a.m. It
Right.
doesn't say you need to run a half marathon before 7 a.m. It doesn't say you need to like iron your bed sheets or have like artisan toast points or, something like that. It just says like recognize that God is in this with you the moment you wake
Yeah.
up, and He has not been sleeping the entire time that your eyes were closed.
Oh gosh, it's that sacredness. And I can't help but as I'm listening to you describe this and thinking about all the verses. In fact, the verse of the day that came up on my Bible app today was about mornings, right? I thought like how perfect that we're having this conversation today. But I can't help but think that that's why so many of us are drawn to the morning. When I think about other women that I know and conversations we have in our group, and there's so much talk about the mornings and the specialness and the wanting of that time, and I can't help but think that we all kind of have that a little bit inside of us, like that feeling of that sacredness, and that's what we're feeling with the morning. There's something about midlife and real estate that nobody really talks about. You don't hate the business. In fact, you're probably really good at it. But sometimes after years or even decades, you just realize that you don't want to keep running your business the same way. Maybe you want fewer clients or you're ready to step back from production altogether. And that's why I created the Midlife Real Estate Blueprint. It will help you to redesign your business for the next chapter and whatever that looks like for you. Visit empoweringwomenrealestate.com and click on Midlife Real Estate Blueprint to learn more. Let's talk about the people who are not morning people, right? Because not everyone is a morning person. And I think didn't you have like these cute t-shirts made that something is like, morning person in. You're probably wearing it. Morning person in progress. I love it. I love it. It's so cute. So what about those people? I mean, I know that for a part of my life, I certainly thought I was one of those people. What do you have to say about that?
So, this might sound surprising, but everybody is a morning person. And the reason is because it is not about the time you wake up, it's how you wake up.
Oh,
So even
yeah.
if you don't think you're a morning person now, you can be a morning person in progress. And the reason I can say this with such clarity and conviction is because of what I read in the Bible through that year of studying the mornings of Scripture. It's so clear to me that God has a soft spot for mornings.
Yeah.
It's so clear to me that God is a morning person. And
Mhm.
because we as human beings are made in his image, every one of us, that
Yeah.
means we are morning people too.
Yes.
Now, you might be a night owl, which means you get up at like 8 or 9 in the morning. You're still a morning person. You may
Yeah.
get up at 4:30 and fit the early bird profile. You probably would identify as a morning person. But my hope as part of this message is to get people to embrace this idea of being a morning person. I think we do a disservice service to ourselves if we let like what are called our chronotypes, meaning if we're early birds or if we're night owls, if we let that alone drive our mornings, because how you name yourself shapes how you live.
Yep.
If you see yourself as a non-morning person, you might enter the day defeated before you begin.
Yeah.
But when you begin to believe that you're a morning person, you're not just claiming this label, you're actually setting the trajectory for how you're going to live the rest of the day. You're stepping
Mhm.
into the rhythm of God's creation, you're aligning your life with His work. And when you embrace the truth that you were made for mornings, you step into each day with more hope and expectation and purpose and intentions and all of the good things. So, yeah, I keep saying, like, you may have told you
Yeah.
yourself your whole life, you're not a morning person, but I say you are.
You are. Well, you know what I'm hearing is that we hear morning person and we think it's about the time on the clock.
Mhm.
But morning person has nothing to do with, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 8 a.m. or even 11 a.m. It's about starting with intention. It's that sacred time. It's about that ritual that you're creating. Let's talk to the woman who is in a difficult season. You and I both have kids that are around the same age. And, when we kind of hit this kind of midlife kind of time in our life, a lot of times we end up being in that sandwich generation, right? Where you've got kids you're caring for, you've got family you're caring for. I know a lot of our listeners are caregivers or, maybe they're going through personal health struggles too. You've been through some of those seasons as well. How did your morning rituals kind of help you through that season, and what do you have to share to somebody who's walking through some difficulty right now?
Yeah, Karen, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about that is a few years ago, my dad was placed on hospice for congestive heart failure. And I was in that in between role. I had kids at home, I had dad needing my help. So I was spending a lot of time at my mom and dad's house helping with, nursing care, social workers coming in, food, just bodily care, all those kinds of things. And I don't regret a second of it, but it made life hard. And then
Yep.
when I came home, things were just sort of chaotic back at home because I was so behind. But what I learned during that time is that when my life feels like it's falling apart, when my heart is breaking, when life feels the most chaotic, I cannot afford to skip the steadying presence of a morning ritual
Yes.
because I'm inviting it's just grounding. It gives me a sense of predictability and stability. Now, I didn't have to wake up every morning with a smile on my face or a song in my heart, but
Yes.
for my own well-being and for the well-being of those who depended on me, I needed to have at least a small amount of quiet time, even if it was
Yep.
just a few minutes. I needed to move my body. I needed to drink my water and my coffee.
Yeah.
I needed to eat breakfast instead of just skipping these things. Like
Yeah.
I had to be intentional. And I think that's the truest for us too, because those
Yeah.
moments are the hardest. It can be easy to think that the morning ritual is dispensable.
Yep.
But that's when we need it most of all. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be big. You might have to shrink things down a little bit, but
Yeah.
it will ground you from the start of the day.
Yeah, you're so spot on with that. I've gone through some challenges myself with, my parents who are both gone now, and my mother-in-law and my own health, and just some different periods. And during those times, you know, you're so depleted, right? You describe, spending the day caregiving or at your parents' house, and then you come home and the rest of your house is chaotic because it's not like you can come home and then clock out, right? You come home and you've got your own children in your home to care for and all of those things. And so it's what we do, I think, as women all day long is we're pouring out, whether you are in a hard season or just in the business of life, we pour out all day long, all day long, all day long. And so if you're not, it's why I so wanted to talk to you about this today. I was so excited about your book because if we don't take that time in the morning to intentionally fill ourselves, right? Filling yourself with the Holy Spirit, filling yourself with just, intention and good things and peace and coffee. It's what we have to do to kind of not just make it through the day, but just to thrive through the day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so too. I know so too. And, Karen, one of the things that just came to mind as I'm thinking about the listeners right now is we're talking about a morning ritual, but really a really good morning starts the night before.
Oh yeah. Hmm. Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that we're just not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
We're
Yes.
not getting enough sleep in our
Yes.
culture. In fact, since the Industrial Revolution, we've lost something like 3 hours worth of sleep because we have lights and we can
Yes.
keep going, we can keep pushing, or
Yes.
there's something called revenge bedtime procrastination.
Oh.
Okay, so what this is rewarding yourself with a little me time because you've had clients all day, you've got the
Uh-huh.
kids, and then they're finally in bed. You finally have all the inbox somewhat cleared, and
Yep.
now you're going to decompress a little bit. And
Uh-huh.
so you put off going to bed, and you're just going to watch one more episode of your
Oh
latest
gosh.
Netflix. And so, I mean, this is fun, and I get it, and I do it. I do it too often, probably.
I
But
did it last night. Yeah. Yes.
and then we wake up and we're already starting off on the wrong foot. So
Yep.
I think, that's a huge area right now where,
Yeah.
even if you just like for a week, I'm just not going to do this revenge bedtime procrastination thing. I'm going to get to
Yeah.
bed when I need to get to bed.
Yes, I had that exact thought this morning. I've been an early to bedtime person. I like to get to bed, kind of early-ish. I like to read my book. But, last night, doing a little Netflix, and I was like, okay, I said to my husband, one more episode, one more episode. And then, by the time I get in bed and then I read it's midnight before I'm falling asleep.
Yep.
And then I wake up not feeling good. I'm not energized. I'm not, and then I feel like I'm rushing. Right. And literally, my thought to myself this morning was, I am not even going to turn on that TV tonight because it is just not, it's not serving me. It's not
Yep.
serving me at all.
Absolutely.
One of the thing I'd love to, as we, kind of bring this episode around into a close is you mentioned 100 women, I think you said you interviewed for this book in kind of different areas of life. Are there some tips or just a couple of, obviously we want everybody to read the book, but are there a couple of things that you can share from what you learned from talking to those women?
Yeah. So I actually interviewed hundreds.
Oh, hundreds. Wow.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did at many different areas of life. And the reason I did so, Karen, is because when I started writing the book, I wanted to find a one size fits all, tried and true way to do mornings. Like everybody gets up at 5, but it was so clear that that was not going to happen.
Yes.
So I'm like, I am not a college student, but I was one once, but I want to know what college students are dealing with now and the tips they have for a good morning. I want to know
Mhm.
what a single working professional, how they're dealing with mornings, a stay-at-home mom, a non-mom working professional, office mom. I mean, just like any kind of mom you can think of, and the non-moms,
Yes.
retirees, widows, empty nesters. So one of the things that I found out for kind of, working professionals is that morning can be this opportunity and a strategic time for you to prepare not only for your workday, but for life in general. As I mentioned before, so much of your time is devoted to your career, but your mornings are yours alone, and you have opportunities to build habits that align with your goals. So I'm going to look up a couple tips here. I'm just reading these randomly from the book right now. This is Bethany. She is a working professional. She has kids and then a job outside the home. I always plan an extra 15 minutes into my morning. I found that if I have to hurry through tasks, I'm starting the day more stressed than I want to. Having those extra minutes lets me take my time with each task and know I have a built-in cushion if something is taking longer than normal. Stephanie, another working professional, says, on mornings when I am more anxious about the day, before my feet hit the floor, I pray a breath prayer saying, in Christ alone as I inhale, and my soul finds rest as I exhale. And then finally, another woman said that my traffic time can be 45 minutes to an hour. I want to optimize that, usually by listening to calm worship music and to be mindful of God with me. So these are
Yeah.
just a few of the tips that are located in that one guide alone. But I got to
Yeah.
tell you, Karen, I learned so much from people that aren't even in my stage of life, like the college girls. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was not like those girls in the morning. I was sleeping in and skipping class because I stayed up too late, probably at establishments with neon signs and cheap drink specials. But these
And the
girls are
sticky floor.
awesome.
Yes, I know exactly what you're
And
talking about.
sticky floors.
It is funny, I feel like these college girls and these young women, they're made different than I think when I think about how I was as a young mom or at those age, it's different. And I think we're all better to learn from it. We can learn from anyone at any stage. You have and I was excited to just learn this morning. Do you also have a study guide that is coming out with this book?
Yeah, it's a full Bible study.
Oh, wow.
There were so many mornings, and obviously I couldn't unpack all of them, but there was so much great content that I built a whole study around the mornings of Scripture and what we can learn in terms of restoration, renewal, forgiveness, spiritual breakthrough from these mornings in Scripture. And there are free videos, teaching videos. So they're great for small group, large group, or just personal study.
Oh, that's amazing. I do have a couple of groups that I'm a part of that I'm going to share that with because
Awesome.
I
Thank
think that would be
you.
perfect. So, as we kind of wrap up today, what is your hope? What's your hope for the readers that pick up this book? What is your intention?
Yes. So I just think about how many women I know who are waking up to lives of chaos and heartbreak and dread. And first of all, if that's you listening right now, like you are not a failure, you are human. And I get that you're not going to wake up with a sunrise walk on your mind. You're waking up to like an email overload and text overload, kids maybe needing you right now. And so just like for people to have permission that this isn't a way to just have a perfect morning. It's a way to have a morning that invites God into whatever you have going on. But my hope also is that the many practices that are outlined in here will have you waking up with hope and joy, will have you realizing that each day is a gift, an opportunity to say to God, this is another day that you have given me to love, to live, and to enjoy.
I love that. I am so hopeful, with this book coming out next week, actually, the day that this episode airs, it's 1 week from today. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy and share it with some friends. As we wrap up, April 7th is launch day in all the places, right?
That's
And
right. Yep.
pre-orders are available now. How can our listeners connect with you, pre-order the book? What's the best way to do all those things?
Well, if Amazon is your favorite, go for it. It's there, both the book and the Bible study. Baker Bookhouse right now has it 40% off,
Oh, wow.
which
Okay.
is quite a good deal on a hardcover book. But if you want to look for all of the retailers, you can go to howtoloveyourmorning.com and you
Okay.
can find me at Jennifer Dukes Lee on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you. I so appreciate your time. I cannot wait for this book to come out next week. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast. Click subscribe to be notified every Wednesday when our latest episode is released, and be sure to check out our group on Facebook.